Hi, I'm Dr. Charles Nelson. I'm a clinical psychologist, and today what I want to show you is a really important self-regulation technique that people have found very helpful in grounding themselves to the present. So the technique is called multisensory emotional grounding, and it sounds very fancy, but in fact it's a very simple technique that relies on all of our senses to remind us that right now in the present we're actually okay. And usually we go in our mind and we dwell on things in the past, and we go down misery lane, or we jump ahead into the future and we worry about many events that may or may not even happen to us. But what's missing from that equation is right now, is the present. So what this technique does is it forces us to pay attention to whatever sensory information is happening in the immediate time, in real time right now, to jog you back to the present if you find you're really lost ruminating over unfortunate events or very anxiously worrying about things that may or may not happen to you. So we're going to direct your attention to all of your senses, or as many as we can in this amount of time, as an example for you to practice. And like most of these self-regulation techniques, practice makes way better. So we're going to start quite simply with all of the things that we see around us. Right now in your environment, draw your attention to what you see around you. And what you want to do is actually try and turn off your critical thinking about these objects and things that you see in the current horizon around you. If you can do that, then you're really present focused. Whenever we evaluate or judge things around us, it has the tendency of making that a foreground experience, and we're no longer in this room. We're comparing it to other events in our life, other memories we may have, rather than the objective reality of what's happening in real time at this very moment. So we want to turn off that critical thinking, and you want to simply notice how these objects come together. What are their concrete physical properties? Identify the colors, the shapes if you can, and their distance from you. This binds us to the present. It keeps us right now rather than getting lost in troublesome thoughts. For instance, this large rectangle in front of us is approximately 10 feet long, 8 feet in height. The color of that large rectangle, most would agree it to be beige. The light reflection is rather low on this object. It has a flat or a matte-like finish to it. And you can notice that. You can take stock of these concrete physical properties. As you move upward on the wall to where this large rectangle meets another surface area, notably the ceiling, you can notice how the overhead lights cast a shadow, and it almost arcs from the center of the wall to each corner. You're noticing the different effects the light has on the color, and this is just as real as any event you've been thinking about, but it's happening in real time and you're drawing your awareness to it right now. As we pan along that large beige rectangle to the wall adjacent to that, what we'll notice is that that wall, in this case, has a different color to it. In this case, kind of a light blue. And we can do that with all of the boundaries of our visual context and gain some awareness as to the colors, the textures, and the shapes of these objects, where they are in relation to us. This large beige rectangle is approximately 3 feet away from me. The one to my left is approximately 3 feet to my left. There's a series of other objects, framed and otherwise, on these walls, and we don't care about the content, we don't care about what's written, we're just noticing the concrete physical properties and where they are in relation to us. You do this with the objects above you, the unique physical properties, the geometric shapes, the light intensities, the objects to the left of us, to the right of us, above us, and below us. This is the context of your visual field. Spend some time noticing the foreground appearance of objects that are closer to you, and then the ones that are more distal or distant in your frame of reference. This frames you to the present right now. In addition to these things that you see around you, you also have a perception of sound. And through your ears, you can kind of direct where sounds are coming in relation to you. Just as with sight, you would pay attention to what you hear on the left of you, on the right of you, if anything, above you, below you. This frames your sound field. And if you notice the subtle nuances, the subtle movement of air, if there's a fan, or if you're in an outside situation, if there's a slight breeze, you can notice these sounds and focus on them coming into focus and then fading out of focus. That has the tendency of grounding you here as well. So you'll cycle through simply all the things you see around you, above you, below you, the left of you, right and below you again, and then the same thing with the sounds, where they're coming from in relation to you. As I'm speaking now, I can hear the words vibrate in the back of my neck. If I move in this chair, I can hear those subtle movements in the chair. I can feel the texture of the cloth against my hand, and it keeps me here instead of worrying what I'm going to do when I get up from here, or if I need to put gas on the car on my way home, etc. It keeps me grounded to this point in time. So we have our visual sense, we have the audition or our sense of hearing. We can also pay attention to the subtle movement of air and temperature. An easy way of doing this is by actually placing our hand in the air. Even if you're in a room and you raise your hand, we have usually a small amount of perspiration on our hand and on our feet that we use for gripping. And it's some evolutionary advantage that we've never outgrown, but it actually can serve as a bit of a thermometer or barometer to tell us what the room is doing. And you can notice often, even indoors, a slight movement of air simply by raising your hand. You can try and landmark where that airflow is coming from, whether it's an air conditioning vent, an open window, a heat register. You can notice the intensity of it, even though it may be very subtle and very, very slow. That keeps you further grounded into the present. So, in addition to what we see around us, what we hear around us, the movement of air and temperature, we can also notice what we smell and what we taste. And even if we're not in a place where those odors are very prominent, such as in a kitchen, we can notice just the ambient smell of any place we're in. We acclimatize to that very, very quickly, but you can draw your attention to it and try and identify any other sense that may be in your proximity. The taste, even though I'm not eating a sandwich right now, I probably do have a taste in my mouth from the last beverage I've had or the last food product I've had, and I can notice that. Again, we're not judging or criticizing these phenomenon, we're just noticing them. It's not bitter or acrid, it simply is what it is. It is the taste of the last food product that we're drawing our awareness to, and that keeps us in this room in real time right now, grounded to the present. In addition to these senses that we all have, you are also present. You can notice your feet on the ground. You can notice the pressure that you have with some parts of your body as they rest on other parts of your body. My right arm is exerting some pressure on my right leg as I place it down. My left arm is being supported by the armrest of the chair. I can notice where my clothing is tighter and where it is looser, just by directing my attention and my awareness to it. That's me, and that's you. And that's happening in real time. So we can direct our awareness to all the things we see around us, where they are in relation to us, their distance from us, the concrete physical properties, the color, the geometric shapes, etc., the texture, the light intensity, and then we can do the same thing with the sounds around us, where they're coming in relation to us, in addition to the movement of air and temperature, taste, sense, and odors, and then us. If you cycle through these phenomenon, if you cycle through the raw data that's being communicated to your brain, what you see, then hear, and so on, it has no choice but to keep you here, in this place. The application of this technique can be very important to help unlock that needle on that broken record, which is our ruminative thoughts cycling around and around. And we often do that when actually our world is quiet. And this can contribute to things such as insomnia. In the middle of the night, you wake up, your brain is wired, it's wide awake, it's rehearsing or regurgitating or reprocessing all those things we've gone through. It's worrying about the future. And if you find it very difficult to kind of slow down or turn off those unwanted thoughts, grounding yourself through all of your senses, even though it may be dark in your bedroom, there's still an array of opportunity to see. Even in the darkness, you can see where your chair is, where you've laid out your clothing. You can hear your home noises. There's always some kind of a noise going on. You can notice where maybe one of your feet is sticking out from your covers. That foot is going to be colder than your other leg that is under the covers. You're noticing all these same sensory responses. It grounds you to that point in time and unencumbers you from worrying about everything else. So that's multisensory emotional grounding. Like any other technique, it takes a bit of practice. It takes, in as little as 30 seconds to 30 minutes, you can immerse yourself in all those senses around you. And by doing so, you can kind of, like I said, take that needle off the broken record when it's irresistible to worry and irresistible to regret and go down misery road, when in fact, most of the time, you and I are safe as we sit here. Thanks for listening.